Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Haydn Adams with A Designer That Codes. Today's tutorial, I want to show you how you can take the Gatsby Starter default template and turn it into your own. My whole goal with templates is that they're stripped down as least as possible so I can put in the most custom code as possible. We're going to talk about how to adjust the template to what it looks like right here with this kind of nondescript looking design with all the margins on the left removed. And then we'll also get into how to put in React Bootstrap and add your own custom CSS file to the design and then upload it into GitHub for you to use over and over again for future projects in Gatsby JS. And with that, let's get started. So Gatsby JS, I'm going to assume, and if you have not done this, I do have a whole video on this, where if we go back into the tutorials, I'm assuming you've gone through this introduction, and I love this famous line because more and more I so believe this is like my mission statement this past year, or maybe in 2019, but it's to familiarize yourself with the command line, because everything we do, especially in this video, is going to be working with the command line. And so if you haven't followed through this entire process, and if you haven't actually got to actually creating the Hello World Gatsby piece, go back to that video. I'll put a link in the description either down below and also in this video to where you can go back and run this tutorial. But I'm assuming you've ran this tutorial. So the next thing we want to do is we want to use one of the Gatsby Starter libraries. Why? Because they've already built a great template. Now, when I talk about starter libraries, I talk about just getting you started. This is not where your website's gonna look like purple with the spaceman right here, but I just wanna get to the point where I can easily utilize this as a simplified template going forward. So to get started in this process, I'm gonna use the command line. So I'm gonna copy and paste this last piece, but I'm not gonna utilize the same name. So I'm gonna copy where the GitHub piece comes from, and I'm going to open up. I'm also in my Gatsby demo projects folder from all the previous ones you might have seen me do. And let me open up iTerm. And you'll see how fast or slow this goes because I'm not planning on stopping this recording unless my computer has a really big meltdown. So I started my root folder, which is my Haydn 5 folder. I'm going to go into my Dropbox and then into my Gatsby demo projects. What iTerm is also really useful for is I can type the first couple letters in a folder name, and if there's no other folder name that, hitting the tab key will autofill. That's pretty darn cool and makes things much easier. So to start your Gatsby project, you have to say Gatsby new folder name. So I'm going to say Gatsby new, and in this project, I'm going to call this one Starter Template with React Bootstrap. Oops. And let me cancel that. No, it's not going to know which one to put in. My gosh, did that one too fast already this morning. So let's fix that one more time. Did it go in here? No, it did not. In order to stop it, there's also a great little shortcut. Control-C stops anything from happening inside iTerm. Try that one more time. Let's say I'm still on the Gatsby demo projects folder. I'm going to say Gatsby new, and per my numbering system, each video is going to get a number. So this is now number 8. Let's try this. I'm going to say 8 starter template with React Bootstrap. Space, and I'm going to paste this HTTPS URL in the project. And like magic, I just think it's magic, it's kind of cool that way, it's going to start downloading all of the needed projects going forward. Now, as this is downloading, a couple things you also should note. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, then you would have known that I use yarn over NPM. There's nothing really for or against it. I was just taught early on to use yarn, and then NPM came in. And I have found a few needs for the NPM, which is the node package modules, but I found that the yarn overall works better for just my flow of setup and usage. And this is where, as I say before, I'm still a web designer, front-end developer. Every so often, I'm not quite sure what the two do in full disclosure, but I found that the yarn works in my flow and the readability on the screen meshes more of my knowledge level. So I just find yarn to be a stronger piece of it all. Cool. It's installed. And it's also nice because it also installs what I like about this. If we then do a Command Shift period in the Macintosh, that the git ignore file, if we open this up in Visual Studio Code, the git ignore file was already pre-built with all of the pieces we need to not have to worry about using Gatsby. So it's already ready to go for Git on top of everything. So it's pretty nice to have this template started because it already comes with so many things you might not have even seen behind the scenes. So let me CD, because I use the numbers, CD08, drop it in here. And let's just see, it should work because this is the Gatsby Starter, the tried and true, one of the most utilized starter libraries in the Gatsby library. And so it should load pretty fast. Did make the public folder. And generating the thumbnails for that one picture. You will find larger and larger projects will take longer and longer to build. Holding down the command key will enable me to click on the local host. And we have our project. So two things next, or actually three things next I want to accomplish. One, I want to include and add the React Bootstrap component to my project. I then want to take out all of the default design so it's really just empty bits of hello world. And then I want to also create a CSS file that I can customize in this project on top of the React Bootstrap. So let's do all that. So the next thing I want to do, well, I want to stop it. Control-C stops the development because I want to go into React Bootstrap and get started. And once again, npm versus yarn. And I will copy the last piece, and it's either npm install or yarn add. So I'm going to say yarn add, paste, yarn add 1.221. Hey, look at that. And it does say you can also customize the SAS file, or what's called a content delivery network, or a CDN for the style sheet. You can use the vanilla Bootstrap, which of course is just getbootstrap.com. To me, if we're going to spend time in Gatsby and anything in React, this is just, I wish I had a great comparison. Maybe, I guess in cars, while this is installing, the React Bootstrap is like a Tesla, and the Get Bootstrap is like the Honda Accord. This thing is going to work, and I own a Honda Accord. I love Honda Accords. I don't own a Tesla yet. But the thing about it is that this will work. And we go back and forth to pieces in here because they have elements and building blocks that work great for us within the framework of Get Bootstrap, the vanilla version. However, we want to run the cool car if we can. We want to run the Tesla. I mean, I would love a Tesla. I don't have a Tesla. But we can run the Tesla equivalent inside of the React Bootstrap within Gatsby. All right, it's installed. It ran everything else on top of that. So the next thing I have to do is add the Bootstrap minified file to my project. So I'm going to copy this. Now, where I'm going to put this is important. So in here with the 08 starter template, I'm going to go into the source or the circ folder. And if you've watched my videos before, you've heard me say circ versus source. I've just been saying that in classes for ever and ever and ever, just because I've just said circ, literally SRC. So I'm in the circ folder / source file or source folder, and I'm going to go into the components area. And the Gatsby starter library creates this great layout.js. It's also got this layout.css. We'll touch that as well in a second. Layout.js, open with Visual Studio Code. And check it out. let's take out the layout.css because ultimately I don't need to use that. I'm going to create my own design. So I'm going to replace that with the Bootstrap minified version. If I save it, and if we go back, yep, that's good. If I save it, I forgot I was not running the Gatsby develop. So Gatsby develop should have been ran first. I always run the Gatsby develop because in case I make a mistake here, it'll give me a real-time error message. If I change or make edits to any part of my Gatsby project without running Gatsby develop, I can do 5, 6, 7 things and not realize that I messed up on something mission critical or something as simple as dropping in a semicolon in the wrong spot or a curly bracket in the right spot or whatever else. There it is. It looks amazing. And if we go back and forth, if we undo that, you'll just see there's a slight difference in the way the margins and the type. So if you look at this right here, this type is serif font. There's a little more spacing inside this area right here, which is set up by the default layout. If I go back and I replace it with the minified Bootstrap version and I save, it makes it a little smaller, and now the type is sans serif over here in this design. So to me, this just helps me out in terms of just having a default area to work with. The next thing I want to do is I want to build a custom CSS area. Now in CSS, it flows top to bottom. So I want to make sure the Bootstrap is above my custom one. So I'm going to say import. In this case, I'm going to say ... Now there's no folder yet. I can do either one. You know what? Let's just do that since it'll make it easier. I'm going to create a new file. I am in VS Code or Visual Studio Code. This is made by the Microsoft Foundation. Amazing, but it works great. So anyways, I am using VS Code. You can use whatever you want. Sublime, Coda, text editors galore. Doesn't matter what software you use because, as my colleague used to say at school, the internet is platform agnostic, as it doesn't know at the end of the day which machine, PC or Mac, Linux, Unix, whatever system you are running on. So anyways, back to this section right here. I have the 08 starter template, I have the circ folder, and I want to create a new folder in here and just say CSS. This is just my brain working. I like to keep my pages, images, CSS, and components. These should all be the JS files, and there should be a whole folder for CSS if need be. I call this custom CSS because that's going to override any particular settings that are running inside of Bootstrap. Custom CSS, save it. There's nothing there, but that's okay. So now what you'll notice, if I do this again by importing, and I can use single quotes, double quotes, that's all. And I can say ... to go out of the folder. That's in typing typical terminology of terminals. The same thing up here, ... cd ... takes you out of the folder and goes into the CSS folder. And I'm going to say custom.css. Why does this do this? Is because now I can override any settings of Bootstrap because it's below. This is the cascading part right here. So just to show you if it works, there it goes. Oh, because it was the bundle failed because I created a new folder and it had a headache. And let's actually run this again. I do find that it can't resolve the CSS. Let's run that one more time. If I create folders, the folders don't always kick into gear. And so while it's rebuilding at the same time, see, check that out. What did I do? Custom.css, custom.css. I make sure it's not required in that respect. What did I do? Oh, look at this. Creating custom development failed. Well, I always do is one, take it out. Okay. And let's see one more time what I did wrong. So I did say I was not going to pause the video, and I paused the video. Why? Because the terminal was smarter than me. So when I took this line out, and if I save it again, it can't find the custom CSS file in the CSS folder. So, of course, I went and took a look, and I said, well, where is the custom CSS file? The custom CSS file is in the components folder. Yes, I messed up. That happens on occasion, and thankfully the terminal reminded me what I did wrong. So the good thing is that if I double check the components, hey, it's right there. So I have to move this custom CSS file into my custom CSS folder. Now we've brought balance back to the force, and now we have success. Failed, failed. It'll tell you really fast. And this is also why I recommend running this Gatsby develop, because it's going to let you know if you've done something wrong, which I did. I failed to move the custom CSS. Now, what's also important to note is if you move files around, make sure that you do not have them open up in VS Studio Code. That'll create like a riff in the space-time continuum. It'll just create a duplicate version of your file because it doesn't know you've moved your project. So just as an FYI, if you're going to move files around, just close it out of any source code you're working with. And just to make sure this is working, let's just say body. Background color, let's go, you know what, all purple. Let's just go purple today. There we go. Boom. It works. So we just tested to make sure the custom CSS file is working fine. I will then take it out, save it, and now we're good. So that's one of the couple steps I want to do. The second is I want to get rid of these default settings and just keep it as clean as possible. So if we go back to the layout, so under the layout.js, I did close all my files. And in here, I want to go through and see what do I need to take out and what do I not need to take out. Well, to me, I don't need these styling areas. So I'm going to just take out that div. I'm going to keep the children for right now because that's the main section. And the footer I'm going to keep for right now because I can change that later on. But to me, I don't need anything in specific. I want things as clean as possible to let Bootstrap take over. So for me, it's div, main, children, and then we have the footer down below. And you can always move the footer to something at least different, but I have to keep it here because the footer's pretty boring, just kind of hangs out there, and we're good. So I did take that out to keep it as clean as possible. I can bring in the container later inside of Bootstrap. So that's good. I've taken that out of the layout component, saving it. It's all good there. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go inside the header because the header has so much of this excess coding that I want to utilize using Bootstrap. I want to keep the header component, but I want to get rid of, come on, code, all this unnecessary styling. And be careful as you take things out because every so often you could miss a particular greater than less than and then error message shows up. So just as an FYI, make sure. Okay, we're getting closer. There's that Gatsby default starter size. And I'm going to take this all out because the link can stay there for right now. That's just a link to the home page because that's where I'll eventually recreate the navigation. Link to, I'm going to keep the site title since it's already pre-built in here. We're good to go. I'm just moving this a little around so I know where it is. And the one thing to watch for is I don't use H1s for titles because they're not titles. The navigation or header, this gets into a little SEO style. And if we go into what I love looking at for me, just as a side note, since we got a few minutes in time right here, because why not? If I search for San Francisco, where I used to live, you should find SF Travel comes up first, but eventually you'll find Wikipedia. Wikipedia does a great job in this. San Francisco is your H1. And if we then inspect this, there it is, H1. Your navigation should not contain the H1 because every page should have a different H1. Not blaming Gatsby, that's just how their starter default library worked, and that's fine. But how it should work is hi people should be the H1, and up here, if we can find it in the white space, the Gatsby default starter is just the title or your logo in your design. It's not the H1. So following good SEO practices, I'm going to take out the H1 since I don't need it. And of course, you got to take out both in there. And if we save it, oh, look at that. It's gorgeous. It's small. It is unstylized. It's got the blue with the underline. Fantastic. Everything is coming into place so successfully. So I'm taking out what I do not need. Now, you can take out the divs. They're pretty neutral, but you do need a tag to surround the link in order for it to work successfully. That's the fundamentals of JSX. So I've taken the purple out, I've taken the styling out, I've taken the H1 out. This is making me very, very, very happy because the less I have to get in the way with, the better I can utilize everything. And of course, again, we are leveraging this Bootstrap minified. If we take it out, we're getting down to bare bones. Oh, look at that. This is like HTML 101 right here. All the styling disappeared because we didn't bring in the Bootstrap. Now we did, poof, there it goes. So once again, all the margins, all the necessary paddings, all those pieces are gone. I want to start with a pretty empty layout going forward. And I won't want to touch the actual page because that's easy to change. But to me, I want to get to a very, very basic default starter because this is my starter. This is how I want to work with it. So the last thing I want to do for this project is I want to change the word Gatsby default starter. So here, whenever I work on the Gatsby config, I do stop the actual development process. There's probably a better way of doing this, but I just find that it does have to recompile the Gatsby config file. So what you're going to do also is a couple things. Is the site, metadata, and title are all located in the Gatsby config file. And I will go Visual Studio Code. And there it is, Gatsby default starter. And since we're calling this the starter template, let's go in and change the title from Gatsby starter default to starter template with React Bootstrap. Now, if I save this, I usually take out the description for right now. I'm going to bring it back, but I just keep it empty. And I'm going to change the author to Haydn S. What I'll also do, just to get rid of the Gatsby starter default, is I will say, in this case, starter template with React Bootstrap. And short name, why not? We'll use the whole thing. Now we'll just keep it starter. We'll just say starter with React Bootstrap. There we go. Just some extra names to go with the plugin manifest area. Now, if you also want to change your favicon or your favicon, whatever how you want to call it, that icon up at the top of the screen, the Gatsby icon is sitting right here in this circ, images, Gatsby icon area. Again, we can worry about this later on. I'm not terribly worried about this point in time changing that icon. That'll come later on as I artfully finish the project. So let me rerun Gatsby develop, make sure I did not mess up anything in the process. It looks pretty good to me. I have saved it. I think we're all in good shape right here. Loading plugins. Maybe. Maybe not. What did I do? It's always that waiting system, make sure I didn't mess anything up. And I didn't. And again, nothing you really see here changed except for the actual name, starter template with React Bootstrap, starter template with React Bootstrap. So I'm good here in terms of how I want this product to be set up, because to me, I want things as empty as possible. I'm not really worried about the index file really right now. If I go to the circ folder and I go to the pages area, I can always go right into this project and start changing and building and adding different pieces. But the important part is in the layout, I have both the Bootstrap and the custom CSS ready to go. This is all set for my editing abilities. I will keep the spaceman for here for it is right now. The last thing I want to do is create something in GitHub that I can then pull down. So I'm going to go over to GitHub and let's just do github.com. And if you've never used GitHub, please sign up. If you've already used GitHub, then rock and roll. So I'm going to say your repositories, but I want to go to this little plus sign and say new repository. And I'm going to call this one my, starter Gatsby template with React Bootstrap. There we go. It's then going to create one that says Haydn 5 starter Gatsby template with React Bootstrap. And what I'm going to do here is, if we saw before, if we go right back into our folder structure and I hit Command Shift period, the git ignore file once again is all set to go. So I could pull this down or pull it up and it'll ignore necessary files that are pertinent to Gatsby. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. Public is fine. Nothing crazy going on here. I'm going to say create repository. And I will stop this project. So I will then go and command click. I'm going to click the copy button. Too many C words all of a sudden. Create a new repository on the command line, which once again, Gatsby says familiarize yourself with the command line. And that's the case right here. I will return this. It will run. And it's going to run its first run through. No problem. But as you can see here, it only has pages, images, and components. That's because the initial run through includes the original stuff that was taken down from Gatsby. We've changed things from master to origin, so I want to add my content to this. I'm going to say git add star, and that's going to take everything and push it up except for node modules public, and we're not going to use the -f if we want to add them. That's okay. So we say git add, then we say git commit, and I'm going to say markdown or informational area, and I will then say added content and removed content in so many ways to this project. And it's basically saying you've changed 6 files, 165 insertions, 55 deletions. I've done that many changes since I've taken the Gatsby starter on board. And I'm eventually going to say git push origin. Oh, I love the terminal sometimes. You can't read all the words. Git push origin master. It'll take all the projects, it'll push them up, and if I refresh the screen, now my CSS folder is right there. If we go back to the template, it's right here, which you want to use. And so to use this project, if I were to stop this for right now, or actually it's not running anyways, if I run a new area, I could say in this project, because this is a GitHub, where I could then take this and I can copy this and say Gatsby new, and I will say 09 copied template. And then I'm going to use my own GitHub, drop it in, and it's going to do everything it's supposed to do. So the real trick about this, that if you can go up, you can go down. So we should have, no, shoot. That's going to place it in my home folder. Come back. You think I was that good. There it is. Let's fix that again. Hang on a second. I stopped at Control C. How about we go into the Dropbox, into Gatsby. The great part about it is if I hit the up arrow, I can run that line again. 09 copied template. There it is. Node modules come in. We should be seeing, if this is the correct version, we should find the React Bootstrap right there. Check it out. It enables us to create our own default starter template. Where did I go? Oh, not down. I want to go up. So it's going to load all the necessary content pieces back in. So I've created my own template I can keep using over and over again. That's in the 09 copied template section. And it will take a few minutes longer while this runs right here because I did have a couple more pieces. But check it out. So if we then do cd 09 and Gatsby develop, fingers crossed. I am recording this on the fly. This is good and bad because I didn't test this, but I'm assuming everything's going to work properly in the 09 because I pushed it up to Git and then I took it down from Git. So I have my own template already now built for Bootstrap, my custom CSS, utilizing the Gatsby Starter default library, which is pretty great. So I'm now running. Hey, check it out. Now I'm in 09 and it looks like 08. There's one more piece I do recommend changing and I just overlooked it earlier. And that does say you can now view the Gatsby Starter default in your browser, where I also did make the change to say you can now view my own default library. So real quick, I did forget to mention this earlier, that this is in the package.json folder. So in here, what I'm going to do is open with Visual Studio Code. At the very top of the screen, you're going to find the Gatsby Starter default. This is like my Starter default, if I can spell all of a sudden, or I can say Haydn Starter default. Just give it a name that you know that this is the Starter default library. So if I save this package.json, ignore everything down below. That's not that important. Where what I can do now is if I do a Gatsby develop, maybe, maybe not. There we go. Takes a few seconds. Initializes. That's fine. It clears the cache. All of that. No stale data. That's always a good sign. Building development bundle. Come on. You can do it. So now you can view, in this case, my name Haydn, Starter default, in your browser. And Haydn Starter default is in your browser. So do know that it is in your package.json file. And nothing has been harmed. It's all working successfully. The starter template with React Bootstrap is set up successfully. I hope you've done this, well, successfully. If you have, I'd love for you to create a link and put it in the comments. I want to see what you've done. Did you create your own default? When I say template, I mean what's best for you. For me, all the pieces that came with the Gatsby Starter default library, that's like 4 words I have to keep saying, and someone should probably keep track of that as they're watching this video. But to me, the default means I can just start running with this project. And the pieces that are most important are the CSS with the Bootstrap and everything else that came with the helmet and the SEO, which is already built in the Gatsby Starter default library. So if you've done this, I'd love to see what you've done. Throw something in the comments for me to take a look at. Once again, my name is Haydn Adams with A Designer That Codes. I hope you've had a great time watching these videos. If you have, please subscribe. If this has helped you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And until next time, once again, I'm Haydn Adams with A Designer That Codes. Check us out on patreon.com where you can download the source code at any of these videos you see here, and supporting us just costs at minimum $3 per month. Thank you for your support.